Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Another listener question episode. There are no rules in podcasting, especially when I do listener question episodes. I can just talk about the ones I want to talk about. I get other questions, but I'm selecting these. And thank you, sponsors: Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Hugs and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Meeting, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. First off, just the sad news that Mark Dehem did pass away on Sunday night. I got the word. Some people have responded. I'm not on social media, but some people keep me informed, and a lot of nice things about a good guy, humility, loving father, husband, brother. I'm so glad I did my episodes with Jim, the older brother, and I hope Mark had a chance to listen to those. Again, he was loved by many and somebody I look forward to seeing each year, and I'll miss him. David Brooks, the New York Times writer, talks about that we should live our lives in such a way that we are building our eulogy virtues more so than our resume virtues. All the things we do as opposed to who we are, the character, and Mark was good on both those counts. Of course, when people deal with end-of-life issues and death, we're all terminal, but depending on your belief system, your worldview, your view of heaven and hell, and some people don't even believe in heaven or hell, and that's their prerogative to believe what they want to believe. I actually believe in heaven and hell. I want to be in heaven, and that's where I'm headed. On the other hand, we see on this earth that bad things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people. We don't know why that is, then life is difficult. I do know that when somebody dies, different faiths handle this different ways. My philosophy is I want to pray for the family and the friends. They've had a serious loss, and they're going to miss that person, and I do pray. But then I find out that Orlando, Collector's Dream, great guy, is got lung cancer. Another bad thing happening to a good guy. The longer you live, the more you see that life sometimes is not fair. But Frank Costello was talking about Mark and Jim, the brothers. He had been at the show that I talked about and knew a lot of the people we were talking about, and he's been on before, and it's just difficult. But if you're a Hindu, I guess you believe in reincarnation. If you're an atheist, you probably think it's just nothing. And if you're a Christian, you're thinking about heaven and hell. And even people that don't believe in hell seem to talk about it a lot. You're betting your life on what happens next. And I'm glad I had the chance to know Mark. John Keating enjoyed the episodes about Mark with Jim, the brother, talking about the simpler past. Again, I had known them for 50 years, and it certainly was more simple then. Secondly, Warren Buffett is retiring. What impact does that have on the hobby? I'm not sure it does, although hobbyists would benefit studying Warren Buffett's life, his life as an investor. Lessons that I would point out is that he's retiring before he has to, but it's pretty close because he's 94. But retiring before you have to is a good idea. Secondly, he was less about leverage and borrowing and more about having cash ready to pounce on good deals. He was clearly a value investor. So he had dry powder ready to pounce, and he was always looking for something that's undervalued. I think that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that in the dollar box, but you could do that in the showcases too, looking for what is a good deal. And it can't be a good deal because the player is injured. Actually, it could be a good deal if the player's injured, but sometimes players just fall out of favor. That doesn't make it a good deal. What makes it a good deal sometimes is a distress sale, a really good player, and the guy is trying to raise cash. That's what Warren Buffett did. Number 3 from Beard on Me, jealous of Gary V's questions because he remembers the good old days of going to the card conventions, which is what we called them in those days. Yes. And the days of no price guides. Yes, I was there. That's why I did a price guide. And the comment is that was unfair. Yes, that's why I did it. But I don't think there was as much gouging as you would think in those days. If I thought a card was worth $5, again, I thought I really knew, but somebody else might think it was worth $10. And if somebody pays $10, then that's the deal. But we weren't dealing with thousands of dollars in those days. Gary V, in my conversation with him, he was very curious about prehistory of what happened, what was going on before he got in the game back when he was a kid. High-speed card chase. Dave is asking, is Gary V still buying sports cards? And my question is, does he have time? He's become not just a persona, an entity, not a machine, but an enterprise. He's got so many irons in the fire. The next time I talk to him, I'm going to inquire, does he delegate buying cards? I just think buying cards is a lot of fun, but it takes time. Does he have time to do that? other than having alerts or having people pointing out things to him. I just don't know. But he is so big into his own IP with VFriends and the marketing agency that he has that is going strong. So enjoyed the conversation. I'll bring it up next time, Dave. Number 5 from Jade Asperis from ComC, friend. I've had him on. He talks about the herd mentality that came up when talking with Gary. And I don't like the herd mentality, but then Jade talks, what about the sheepdog mentality? I want to be in tight with the shepherd. When the shepherd's going to go this way, I want to be ready to know what's going on. But unfortunately, the analogy can break down because the sheepdog is the shepherd's enforcer, and the sheepdog is not usually working the front of the sheep. You kind of work in the back. It doesn't smell very good back there. What I want to be, Jade, is I want to be the alpha sheep. If I'm not the shepherd, I want to be close to the front of the pack. When the shepherd zags or zigs, I want to know, and I want to be, like I said, the smell is better. Being close to the front of the parade is better than being in the back of the parade and the last one to know. But point well taken, Jade. Thanks for your thought there. Stooks talked about having the SED issue from 1976 where my price survey was in there. And yes, I did that for 3 different years up until the annual price guide. I published some surveys. They were not superficial, but they were not as inclusive. And he says he was in a bubble in North Dakota in 76. Everybody was in a bubble, Stooks, in 76. There were some larger metropolitan area collecting activities, but still, it wasn't the blind leading the blind, but everybody had poor vision. But Stooks has the advantage that Gary Vee really wants, and that is that he was there. He has actual memories. He's not reading about it. He was there, and Gary Vee wants to pick up on that, and he should, and you should too. That's one of the things I'm trying to do in my podcast is trying to illuminate some of those days. Number 7 from Commenting Collector. He said, I bought the first Beckett Annual when I was a kid. That was book number 2, and I wore it out. Commenting Collector, that was really the first book that we did that was actually hardcover also. The hardcover cost a little bit more, but the hardcover was pretty hard to wear out. The soft covers, not so much. He said he bought them in B. Dalton. I don't know that people even know what B. Dalton is anymore. It was a bookstore that was great to browse in. And then he said, thanks for the memories. Number 8 from Commercial Free Show. He's a huge fan of breaking, and he appreciates he thinks, balanced insights about the pros and cons of breaking and the gambling aspect that is admittedly there, but if it's fair gambling and people are going into it and there's no crooked stuff going on, then hopefully adult or smart collectors can make a choice if they want the enjoyment of that break. His comment was he was frustrated. He said louder, ignorant voices like a certain person that I'm not going to mention, it's also a friend of mine, who he says are not educating themselves and choose to profit off clicks and views of negativity. I'm not sure that's it. I think that's kind of harsh. I think all content creators that have an approach like that, especially on YouTube, where you can emote more, sometimes it's about the headline. It's about the title of the show. So I don't have a problem with clickbait in that sense. What I don't like is when the clickbait leads to a one-sided commentary that is unbalanced, that does not in any way give the other side of the issue. So you're just leading them down your path of thinking without acknowledgement that there are pros or cons as it may be. Nevertheless, it's a free world. It's a free podcast. YouTube, most of these we're talking about are free. So if you choose to go there, pretty soon you ought to be figuring out that this podcaster, this YouTuber has a point of view. Again, I have no problem with that. And I do think there's a gambling addiction. And if people have a gambling addiction and you get sucked into it, it's hard to get out. Like I said, some breakers are better or different. I had a conversation with Brian Gray at the show last weekend and about how there is luck in breaking, but there's also some skill of knowing when to get in, where to get in, how to play the game. And so if you study that, you can way better your chances and reduce the kind of the blind, lucky gambling aspect of it. Bring skill into it. Number 9 was from a fellow Mustang. He said he went to SMU much after I was there, graduated in 97. I was long gone, but he started collecting in the 80s and he's gotten back in, and his passion is the 56 Topps baseball set, which is mine too. I love that. I got the whole set and then I got him autographed and it was great. Now he's 1/3 of the way through the set, but loving that. And he wanted me to go deeper into that. I think I've already done some episodes on it, but I have more on the way, Hollis. So he wants to know why they were designed that way. We addressed that to some degree, What about the series? Again, it was a lot of series compared to 55. We talk about that. So I've got episodes coming in another week or so. I did an episode with Rich and Matt Galvin. Mike Moynihan talks about stuff like that. He says, do you have any book or other recommendations where I could learn more? I'm going to address it in a week or two. There are other podcasts out there. If you just search for 56 Tops, there's a fair amount of knowledge out there. And I'll probably come back to it repeatedly because I love that set. Number 10 was from Matt Spurgeon talking about trying to complete the autograph set of the 76 SSPC cards, which are beautiful, pure card. They were made, I think, with an eye toward autograph collectors. So I will also, Matt, was looking to complete that set, and I gave up when I had most of a set, but there's some really tough ones there because I thought, what collecting endeavors am I going to go after? I'm not going to do this. So I sold what I had. And some of the ones I sold, I actually traded to my old company. They wanted to do an experiment. And so I gave a group to them, and they slabbed them as the 1976 SSPC under the Dr. James Beckett autograph collection, just to see what that would do. And I thought that was interesting. It was an experiment that they did. I don't think it went great, although it looks like, Matt, you bought some on eBay, so they have found their way to the secondary market, and that's great. But I have mixed feelings about somebody wanting to buy a card just because it used to be mine. I will say this, on those cards, truth would be that I did not get them in person. I bought them and accumulated them. One main buy that I did, maybe 45 years ago. Yeah, maybe 46 or 47 years ago, I bought a huge collection. So they were just a few years out of the chute. And then lastly, from my friend Buck, he's retired now, becoming more of a dealer, and he was going through some of his stuff. He was somebody that Rich and I helped divide up one of the big collections. That's also an episode that's coming. And he noticed he found an uncut sheet of the 96 Sports Illustrated for Kids cards that have the Tiger Woods rookie card and other cards that's got Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Emmitt Smith, and others. Really, the Tiger is the whole deal. And so the Tiger is in that sheet. He wants to know the best way to maximize the value. I'm not sure if I had it or Buck, if you have it, we would be the ones to maximize the value. If you leave it intact, I wouldn't grade it as a sheet. Somebody needs to separate the cards and grade them individually and hope for, and regardless of what you get on these other guys, you want to get a high grade for the Tiger. If I had that, I don't have that, but Joe Davis' podcast, he's talking about how he's one of the premier bulk submitters for all the grading companies. I like that. On the other hand, you're not far away from BGS. You could drive up there and talk to some of them and say, there's got to be, if you perf them and separate them yourself, you're liable to lose a lot of money if you don't do it right. And there's an art to it. I don't have it. I fold them. I've tried that, but I don't know how they grade the perks because I'm not a grader. The perfs, the perforations. So maybe Heritage would know. They're local. Going up to a card show and bringing it, I would put it in some kind of a holder so it can't get creased. But I don't think that would be a DIY. I don't think I would do that myself. Unless I saw a YouTube video that said, here's the way to do it. And I've tried to do things like that. I've perfed or de-perfed a lot of cards, but it's just painful to see that if they don't perf just right, if you cut them, that can be a problem. I would walk it through the show next time you're at the Waters Creek show. There's 700 dealers there. If you see somebody that has it, they're liable to make you a very nice offer, but it would be because they know how to get it graded with a high grade, get it perfed and graded. So anyway, that's it for 11 more questions. Condolences to the Dehem family. Best wishes to Orlando, Collector's Dream, and others. It just seems like a lot of stuff is happening. It's sad, but just enjoy life as you can and be kind to others. So that's it.